I would recommend that the first property that you buy, make it an investment property.
Okay.
So the reason for that is that it is much easier to scale from an investment property than a primary home. So think about it. When you buy a property to live in, I call it an emotional buy.
Sure.
It's all about emotions. It's about you. Like, oh, I want it in the suburb.
Sure.
I want, what are the different strategies? That's where you start. Okay, then try to understand every bit of those strategies.
Okay.
How do they work? Oh, okay, so how do I make money out of that? Oh, then from that perspective, but I think I like,
Sure.
student accommodation, for
Sure.
example.
That's good. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Mr. Moyo, how's it, man?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today we have Mr. Gav on the show, and we wanted to ask you a few questions on property and how people can use property as one of the different streams of income instead of just their salary. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to shoot with the first question. The first question is, if your salary alone isn't enough in this economy, how can property help someone create multiple income streams?
So I think firstly is I would say you need to get the education aspect of it, right? So I know that we somehow downplay the basics of understanding how to invest, right? So understand firstly from an investment perspective, what does it mean when I invest in property, right? And then from there, what you then do is that what are the different strategies that are out there? So when you now understand these strategies, then you can have a key focus to say, okay, maybe I'm going to start with student accommodation, for example, right? Or maybe I'm going to do rent to rent. So once at least you have an understanding in terms of, okay, I'm going to do rent to rent, the next step is that you need to find a specialist that deals with rent to rent, right? And the nice thing about these days is that you don't necessarily just have to have somebody physically that you can approach, but the material itself, because now you have a niche market that you're working with, you can then zoom in much better. So the problem is that when we say property investing, then somebody says, yeah, I want to be a property investor. And then it becomes so huge, you don't know where to start.
Okay, it's too broad.
Yeah. So always just to say, okay, what are the different strategies? That's where you start. Okay, then try to understand every bit of those strategies. How do they work? Oh, okay, so how do I make money out of that? Oh, then from that perspective, but I think I like, student accommodation, for example, right? So then at least from that perspective, you are able to maximize. But you have to start somewhere. So you have to start with one strategy. You can't start with all of them. Yeah.
And please tell us how you first started building your own property portfolio, and why is it important for you to help other people?
So the first property that we bought, it was in Clayville.
Okay.
Right. That was bought in 2003.
Shucks, okay.
Those properties were going for, we bought it for 110,000. It was me and my mom, right? We then later sold it in 2008 or something, for 350,000.
Okay.
The very same property today, it's 900,000.
Okay. Shucks, grew.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the appreciation aspect of it there, right? So if one knew what I know now, and at the time I was working for a bank, so I was getting staff rate. So I could have bought, I think I could qualify for 2 of those. So if I had kept that same property, technically I would be sitting with equity in that property. So these are some of the things that you get to learn about them later on. Because there was a point in my life where I lost everything. So it was through, again, bad financial decisions that one made. Because again, when you start working, it's very important. When they tell you save, tonight then you want to buy a car, right? And then from that perspective, then you want to be seen, you know, and you don't do all of those kind of things. So I fell into financial
Okay.
troubles. Like I literally had to go back home.
Sure.
So obviously, when you start now regaining your strength again, that's where you start doing things properly. Because I mean,
Okay.
if you're now looking at cash flow, you know, supplementing your income, you know,
Sure.
property is great because then a lot of the times it's hand free,
Okay.
meaning that if I have a manager to do that. So, for example, in our agency, we help you to with advisory to say, okay, which property investment strategy will work for you. We then help you to even get a bond. We
Okay.
even help you then to do renovations. We
Okay.
then even help you to then manage that property.
Sure.
So throughout that process, you technically don't really, you're
Do
not doing much.
Yeah.
You know, so to have a portfolio, it's really that on the safeguarding to say that when times are tough, then you always have that cash flow, especially for us as business people. Because remember that, especially when you're still building, you know, months are not the same,
Sure.
right? So you might have a big client, you might have the other day, the other month is tough. So, but if you have the consistent kind of rental income that you get, it then boosts you from that perspective.
Sure.
Yeah. So for me, that is very important. I think cash flow.
Okay.
But again, I normally wouldn't just put cash flow as just one strategy because when I normally advise on property investing, I normally talk about cash flow and capital appreciation.
Okay. What's the difference?
So cash flow is when I buy a property that I want to turn around the profit much quicker.
Okay.
So meaning that if, for example, so I normally make an example with multi-lets. So again, you know, that's why you need to understand the jargons
The terms, yeah.
because they'll scam you people out there. Yeah, well. So multi-letting, right? So we just been from one of the properties that we are managing. So it's a house. It's converted. It's gonna have about, let's say, maybe 6 families,
Okay.
right? So it's one property, but it has 6 families. So
Six
then that's 6
families
times
by
income.
6 rooms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then that's 6 times the income.
Okay.
So when you look at your numbers, so when you look at your, let's say, like call it a financial analysis, right? So when you now look at your rental, and then maybe you might have a bond,
Okay.
there might be rates, right?
Yeah,
Then there
levies.
is us, you know, Gavin, Gavshaw, we are managing the property, we are charging a percentage out of that. Then when you minus all of that, at the end of the day, you normally will be left with a surplus.
Okay.
So you're making a profit out of that property,
Okay.
right? So it's paying for itself and giving you money in the pocket. Then capital appreciation is where now you are buying, let's say you are buying property in Cape Town.
Sure.
So you have seen how numbers are climbing in Cape Town, like it's crazy,
Yeah.
right? So again, going back to the Clayville story. So I bought this property for 110,000. Now it's worth 900,000. So when we talk about equity, we are talking about the difference between 110,000 and the 900,000.
Okay.
So in between that, for example, if I then go back to the bank and say, bank, okay, so my property has grown in value to 900,000. I want to borrow against that increase in value.
Sure.
So that's what we call refinancing.
Okay.
So I'll refinance. So let's say now I'm going back to that property. I'm gonna refinance 500,000. So they're gonna give me 500,000 cash.
Sure.
So I can take that 500,000 cash and go and buy another property cash.
So that's not. Is it dead or it's not dead?
It's dead.
It's dead.
It's dead.
Okay.
But remember now, if I take that 500,000 and go and buy another property cash for 500,000,
Yeah.
do I own that property?
Yes, you do.
I do, right?
Yeah.
So I have a title deed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then I rent it out.
Okay.
I'm getting income, right?
Sure.
So I can take that income and pay back
The bank.
on the other
Oh,
side.
shucks,
But how
okay.
many properties do I have now?
2.
Did I need to have 500,000 saved up?
No. So okay.
So is there a difference between real estate investment and property investment? What's the difference between rather real estate and property?
It's jargon.
It's just jargon.
It's just jargon.
Yeah,
Just
because
like
when
we
I-
sound fancy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I listen to people, they make real estate sound like
Yes,
something
it's the
else,
thing.
and
Yeah.
property like something else.
Yeah. But
So it's just jargon.
it's jargon. But remember also, I think from a, real estate, it gives it a broader kind of meaning. Because sometimes I think when you say property, it also just really limits it to,
A bond.
like a house,
okay.
whereas there's many things. Like, I
Okay.
mean, even like these days, if you look at cemetery, right? I mean, that could be real estate
Yeah.
because people are making money out of cemetery.
Serious?
Yeah, there's cemeteries that they rent out, like for you to dig a hole.
Sure.
There's one there by FNP.
Sure.
Yeah, like literally, you need to buy the site,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then you rent it.
So what if
There's
you-
levies.
You don't pay the levies and stuff.
Hey, that one I don't know. I need to find out.
Because I'm thinking there was a point where I think I saw it in a show. They went to see their deceased, and
Yes.
then they found another name where their deceased was placed. The deceased is at the bottom because they didn't pay for the rent.
Yes, because it's real
Oh,
estate. So you're
okay.
you are renting there.
The place.
Yeah, it's very nice, Shem, when you go there. It's like,
Sure.
I think you know there's a difference between a made-up lawn and a manicured lawn.
Sure.
Yeah, the other one is manicured.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a difference there.
Yeah.
So you rent, it's not even technical, it's real estate.
Sure.
So you rent out that particular piece, and you pay for it. You pay levies.
Okay.
Yeah, because now they need to maintain that.
Sure.
It's like literally, it's nice, not like your typical cemeteries.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
some of it's even like you can sit like a park. They've created comfort so that you feel like the spirit is there. Yeah, well,
So would you recommend, which one would you recommend between buying or selling? I mean, sorry, not buying or selling, buying or renting.
so it depends.
Mm.
So I normally don't blanket approach everything because it will be, I think, reckless
Yeah.
of me.
Sure.
So I'll make an example. Yesterday, so I had a lady that called me from a referral, right? And she's a first-time buyer, right? So she wants to buy a property. So she wants to buy a property. I'm like, okay, cool. What kind of property do you want to buy? So a lot of the times you'll be confused. What do you want to buy? But most of the time you lean more into apartments,
Sure.
right? So then I asked her a question. So you want to buy this property? Why? Why do you want to buy a property? Ish, I'm tired of renting. Right? Then she says she wants to buy, and then later, maybe after a year, she wants to rent out the property.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I said to her, if you, because I feel that you also want to be a property investor, right? If you bought a property, you rented it out to somebody, and then you keep on renting, would you still have the same feeling?
I don't think so.
Right? You wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
So the issue is that I'm tired of paying other people's bonds.
Sure. Sure.
But if somebody's paying your bond, will be a problem.
No.
Not necessarily.
Sure.
Right. So I then said, look, and plus you're talking about being a property investor. I normally advise, again, it's not a blanket approach. Obviously, you'll tell me your story and then I'll advise on it. And to her, I was like, I would recommend that the first property that you buy, make it an investment property.
Okay.
So the reason for that is that it is much easier to scale from an investment property than a primary home. So think about it. When you buy a property to live in, I call it an emotional buy.
Sure.
It's all about emotions,
Sure.
about you. Like, I want it in the suburb.
Sure.
I want, because I could
Sure.
tell, like,
Yeah.
what kind of property. It was about her. Like, there's these tiles. Oh, right. Okay, cool.
Sure.
But I also wanted to demonstrate or to put across my point, right? Now, if you go and buy an investment property, I spoke about multi-let.
Sure.
Do you enter there in any kind of way, like your emotions and everything else?
No, it's business.
No, right? It's business. It's like, okay, in that area, do they want a communal setup? Because again, areas are not the same. You find that some areas that the guys are okay to share a house and rent out their bedrooms and share a kitchen.
Okay.
Some areas you'll battle to rent out in that way. So you always need to understand that, right?
Okay.
So, but it's all about the objective at the end of the day. What do you want to achieve? There's a space for rental, but again, the background might be that, look, I have a fiance right now, I have kids, and they want their own house.
Sure.
And then when now you can now say, let's rent and invest.
Sure.
Or it might be that there are people that genuinely they don't want to own any properties. They just want to rent.
Sure.
And that's still fine. There was one I remember a long time ago, and it was wow, because I was always under the impression that if you don't own property, it's a problem.
Okay.
So there's like this, Kev, but I don't have a child, right?
Sure.
And then if I rent, I normally pay less. So I can go and live in Standing Hill
Sure.
and pay,
Less.
I don't pay the amount of maybe levies or bond that the person
yeah.
who's owning that property
Sure.
will be paying.
Sure.
But I live in Standing Hill.
Sure.
Yeah, and then I'm fine. And then I have a life cover. So if I pass away, then my family is going to get money. They can then go and buy properties if they want.
Why is a life cover so important?
So a life cover, especially if you have dependents, right?
Okay.
So think about it in this way. If, let's say, you have kids that you are looking after,
Sure.
right? They depend on your salary
Yeah.
currently.
Sure.
So what happens if you pass away?
They don't have any source of provision.
Exactly.
Okay.
But let's also come to property, right? So let's say you go and buy property using a bank, the bank.
Sure.
It's dead, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't have life cover on that particular property,
So
what happens when you die?
the kids are gonna inherit the debt.
Or they might even auction the property because they might not able to pay for the property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what if I have money and I just have a will that says Smang mom is gonna get thingy like that?
Yeah, then it's I can
It's
remember
fine.
it's all about what you want at the end of the day. Yeah.
Alright.
So that's why we can't blanket approach things. You
Okay.
know, the backgrounds are different. So we
Sure.
don't want the same thing. And that is why it becomes very futile to start to argue about things. Like because
Yeah.
we don't look at things in a certain
same.
way. And remember again, our exposure is different.
Sure.
Right? It's limited to what we know.
Sure.
Yeah, there's some people that, for example, I did a video on TikTok, I think it was sometime this week, where I was talking about that you can actually buy property using the bank with a company that has never traded before.
Okay.
Now, obviously, people, they watch what they want to watch
Yeah.
in
Sure.
the video.
Sure.
Now, like, okay, let me not say common sense. In a way of understanding, there's no way that the bank is going to grant a bond to a company that has never traded before. Nje.
Sure.
It doesn't make business sense, right?
Yeah.
So then, I don't know whether people take the first part
Yeah.
and they don't take the second part. So the second part to that is that, but, right, if it's my company, I still need to have the affordability and the credit worthiness.
Okay.
Yeah. So the bank can still needs to say, okay, is this person can afford this bond, and are they credit worthy?
Okay.
Because remember, those two things are
Yeah.
not the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So affording, it means that if the bond is 10,000, I can afford the 10,000.
Sure.
Credit worthiness is to say that the way I manage my finances is proper according to the bank standards.
Sure.
Yeah, because I can afford but be reckless. You see?
Sure.
Or I can have the credit worthiness,
Sure.
but I can't afford a 10,000
Sure.
bond.
Sure.
Yeah. So I spoke about that to say that the bank will still rely on Gavin,
Okay.
who's the director of that company, to have a good financial standing,
Okay.
whether affording or credit worthy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Then once they're happy, then they will grant the bond
The bond. Yeah.
to the company.
Okay.
But Gavin must stand surety for that debt.
Okay.
So surety says, if now the company fails to pay, they come after me. So I'm a guarantor. I now like using that word to sound smart. So I'm a guarantor to this particular debt or loan agreement, so
Okay.
to speak. Because if your child is over 18, you can buy them a house using a bond.
Okay.
They can, it will be in their name, but you are the guarantor. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think we underestimate research?
A lot. a lot. And it's even worse now. Like I feel like sometimes we're even lazy to do like ChatGPT. Like you just type.
Sure.
Yeah. Like because I remember
Yeah.
even with what I'm saying with this
Sure.
example,
Sure.
yo, you should have seen some of the comments.
Sure.
Yeah, you are a scam.
Mm.
There was even one. I'm like, and I was very tempted to do to do a reply video.
Yeah.
Because he said he works for a bank. He's been working for a bank for 13 years. He has never heard of such a thing.
Sure. Sure.
And then I was like, I wonder which department you work in. But
Yeah.
again, the bank is huge.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
That
there was I used to work
Sure.
for the bank.
Sure.
There's certain parts of the bank I didn't know what they do. Yeah, which is okay, right? But we deal with that like almost every day. We help people to get bonds,
Sure.
right? So I mean, it's not like we are taking the thing from a sky.
Yeah.
It's something that we know about.
Sure.
Yeah, and even if you think about it, it makes sense. So if
Yeah,
I can,
true.
I have the affordability as the director, then the bank normally shouldn't have a problem, right? But obviously, because it's a different entities, normally the issue might be how much they give you.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. To say, okay, maybe they might not give you 100% because it's in an entity. So those are some of the things that obviously would advise our clients on.
Okay. How can a first-time buyer negotiate better when buying a property?
It's just that, negotiate. So you know what
Okay.
the problem is? So when you buy property normally
Mm.
for the first time, the issue around it is that you, especially if you don't have somebody guiding you,
Mm.
it's easy to get caught up on the bond grant.
Okay.
So I'll explain the process. So the process is, I want to buy a property.
Sure.
Right? I see this property that I like.
Mm.
So depending whether there's an agent or let's say there's an agent.
Sure.
So I saw this property, I call an agent, we go and view the property, I like it.
Sure.
Right? And then maybe I do a pre-approval.
Okay.
Right? The pre-approval we do like, okay, I can afford
Okay.
to buy this property.
Mm.
Then we sign an offer to purchase.
Okay.
So sign an offer to purchase, that means now we have an agreement between me and the seller.
Sure.
Then we take that offer to purchase, now it goes to the bank. Now, depending on the mechanism of now applying for the bond,
Sure.
because you can either go to your bank or you can use a bond originator like us.
Okay.
So we are bond originators as well. So
Okay.
what we do is that we then go to all the other banks. So your application will go to different banks
Different banks.
instead of going to one
One
bank.
bank, okay.
Right. Now, the nice thing about that is that obviously that gives you leverage because it means that you can now see who gives you what,
different options.
different options.
Okay. Cool.
And then in some instances, we can even play them against each other,
Sure.
right? To say, look, ABSA, because let's say, okay, not to mention, you bank with Bank A,
Yeah.
and then we then go to Bank B,
Sure.
and then say, hey, Bank B has given you a good rate.
Sure.
Bank
Okay.
A, can you match it?
Mm.
And then they say, okay, cool, or no, whatever the case might be.
Sure.
So you see, at least you can
Have leverage. Yeah.
barter on that
Sure.
aspect.
Sure.
So now the mistake that happens is that immediately when I got 100%.
Mm.
I'm a first time buyer. Yo, me, I'm happy. Like,
Sure.
and then especially if you didn't think you'll get it.
Sure.
Yeah, then you don't even want to hear about what other banks are saying.
Yeah.
So then you then miss out on because
Yeah.
again, depending on who you're working with, some of them will be like, "Ah, Joe, this is a good rate, so take this one."
Okay.
You know, but you might maybe have waited even maybe a couple of days for us to get response of other banks,
Okay.
or even go back and negotiate even more on your behalf.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just on the basis that take a breather. Yeah, as long as you got one that has shown an interest.
Yeah.
Still wait for the others.
Sure.
Yeah, it might take maybe a couple of days, but don't just the first one and then you accept it. That's
Sure.
where then the mistake comes in.
Okay, for someone starting with a normal salary in 2026, what's the first practical step they should take to start building a property portfolio?
So I think the first part is you build your credit profile.
That's the first thing.
That's the very first thing.
Okay.
I remember I once during COVID, when we were doing these videos, starting video rising.
Sure.
I was talking to this amazing guy who has he runs a bond originating company, and he was saying, and it's one of the things that has always been in the back of my mind. He said your credit score is like the second important thing after your ID. Your credit score, right?
The second important thing
Yeah,
after your ID.
Your ID.
Okay.
And at the time I didn't understand it, you know. But when we talk about OPM, so OPM is using other people's money. And the beauty about it, and again, there's different philosophies, right, out there. The nice thing about leveraging, which is using other people's money. So imagine now, I spoke about the fact that if now I mentioned that property that I made reference to, right? So you go and get a bond, right? When you get a bond, now what's happening is that you bought a property, let's say, for $1 million.
Sure.
So the property was going for $1 million, but you afford 1.4 million.
Okay.
Right? You know, you can go to the bank and take the 1.4 million, even though the property is 1 million.
1 million, okay.
Yeah. And then use the other money to fix the place. So when you fix the place, what's happened?
The
That
value.
your rent goes up.
Okay.
Right? So imagine when you start, you can use your credit profiling in that manner to build up a portfolio. Because I mentioned that we didn't know better.
Sure.
We went and got cars, as first things, right?
Sure.
Because again, you want it to be seen and whatever.
Sure.
So, but imagine if now you go and get a property. So you build up your profile, it's good, you can leverage, then you buy that property, then technically you can now get these properties to to pay for your car, to pay for your lifestyle.
Sure.
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 It can even help you to pay for where you're renting out.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So if we knew all of that when we were starting out, my one was even worse because I used to work for the bank,
Sure.
right? And I used to work. There was a point where I was working at the credit department. Now the credit department, I was that guy that used to get, back in the days we used to get what we call a repo list.
Okay.
Now you have like My Roof.
Okay.
It's a site where you can. There we used to get a repo list. It was this thick. The repo list had all the defaulters. So people that are defaulting, the properties are about to go on
Auction.
it's either legal, going on auction. It had a name and surname of the owner. It had address. It had a physical number of the owner.
Sure.
It had the outstanding bond amount. Back in the days, the bank wanted the outstanding bond amount. So imagine that, right?
Yeah.
Shucks.
Like that's gold.
Sure.
Yeah, that's gold.
Yeah.
I remember I tried once. I called. Well, obviously, you're not supposed to,
Sure.
but you could do it because they
Sure.
used to give us these things.
Sure.
You could call. That time there was this property. The market valuation was sitting at 400,000. Yet the outstanding bond amount. Like imagine it's going to legal for 30,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So technically, you could have called the person and say, "Look, I'll give you 100.
Sure.
At the end of the day, you're gonna lose this house.
Sure.
But if I give you 100, at least you're getting something."
Yeah.
So I did to me it was like I even stopped please don't give me that stuff. Now to think about it
You missed out on
Yeah.
what you did.
if these are the things we're now looking for, and I used to get on the silver platter on my desk every month, and not just Gauteng, I could get a list anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's all those things that if you don't know better,
Yeah.
and that is why it's very important, especially for young people, coming up, consume yourself with information that is progressive.
Sure.
And the nice thing about it is that because we now have technology, we have podcasts.
Sure.
So you can be able to absorb as much information as possible. these days, Shem, unless if you are there in the bundus, like it really becomes difficult for somebody to have an excuse
Sure.
to
Yeah.
say that they don't have an access, especially
Sure.
if they have phone, they have internet.
Yeah.
But again, as well, we mustn't downplay the exposure aspect of things,
Sure.
you know, because it takes that willpower to surround yourself with people that will talk
Sure.
sense at the end of the day.
Sure. One last question. Where can people, is there a best area where people can start buying property if they ever consider?
Every place has a market.
Every place,
Every area has a market.
even Santon.
Every area, right?
Okay.
The only difference is the caliber
Okay.
of tenants that you will get.
Okay.
I'll make a simple example. At home, like my father's home, like where he grew up. Next door, there's a guy who has, I think, like 10 shacks
10 shacks.
in that particular property.
Sure.
Like that yard.
Sure.
10 shacks, right?
Mm.
You hear me? Shacks, ne?
Shacks, yeah.
Yeah. He charges 1.5 every check
Sure. Per month.
per month.
Sure.
It's a shack. You know?
Sure.
So it doesn't matter where it is. So it's
Okay.
just on the basis that what caliber of tenant will I get? So we normally would say is an A grade, is a B grade. So you will obviously classify it. Yeah, but literally we rent out checks.
Then how do you identify a good, what do you call it?
Property.
So the guy that stays in the rent, I forgot the name.
The tenant.
The tenant.
All right. So look, I mean, at the end of the day, and nice these days is nice because we have like your Facebook market. But again, if you understand the area, you'll know, okay, typically the people that are here, you know, this caliber of people.
Sure.
But remember, it also depends on what are the amenities around there. You know, what is the economic activity? So if you now try to sound smart, what is I call it the psychology of an area, right?
Okay.
So the economic activity that is there. That is why you won't find, like, you'll always like find maybe different things in different areas.
Sure.
Like some of them are conservative, some of them you know,
Sure.
are pricey.
Sure.
Like I'll make an example. If you take Pretoria East and Pretoria North, normally Pretoria North is conservative, so that's why your rentals will be a bit, you know, conservative. You can get like maybe for 5,000 for an apartment for a 2-bed. But you go to Pretoria East, they are both in Pretoria. But Pretoria East, to get like an apartment, 2-bedroom for 5,000, eish, like we even like, hey my guy, like that's very difficult. Like you want me to perform miracles,
Sure.
you know. But they're in Pretoria.
Sure.
So it's just to understand what are the economic activities, what drives sentiment from a tenant's perspective, and all those kind of things. Like again, you look at let me make an example with which area. You'll have your Ebony Parks, you have your Clayvilles,
Okay.
right? You go and rent there, check a room. How much is the room there?
Sure.
But you take the same room, you go to Soweto.
Sure.
They think like you are playing here. So you want me to pay 3.5 or 2.5 for this room?
Sure.
In Soweto, it must be a proper room. It must be a whole house actually
Sure.
for 3.5.
Yeah.
You know, so you always need to understand those dynamics, and I think that is why it's you do the research,
Okay.
and then if you feel like you can't do it, get us to do it for you, because then we know.
So even if I'm a low income earner, let's say I earn
5,000.
5,000, can I still come to you, and I have a good credit score? Am I still able to build wealth from property?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there's flats that you can buy. They're very cheap. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You can get there. Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kev. Can you share a little bit about your company and what you do and how people can find you?
All right. So we are a property investment company.
Okay.
So we are registered with I make emphasis on registered.
Sure.
Because hey, they're busy there on TikTok.
Sure.
So I registered with the PPRA, so which is the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority.
Sure.
So the nice thing about us is that we do both sides. So heavily, obviously, we are property investors, meaning that people that come and say, Gav, I want to start investing in property. My credit score is good. I want to buy, but for investment purposes. Then we show you the ropes in terms of what to do. We hold your hand up until you get the property. We help you rent it out. But we still, if you say, I want to just buy a property to live in, that's still fine.
Sure.
We will help you to get that. We have, as I said, we have the component of bond origination. So if you want to see if you qualify, if you want to apply for a bond, we'll assist you with that. We do rentals, we do maintenance, we have project managers for renovations.
Sure.
Because again, with regards to property investing, and we normally advise that what you want is that you want to buy the not so nice property
Okay.
in a very good area, because you probably get it for below market value.
Sure.
Then you fix it up, it pushes up the value, and then you can leverage against that value, right? So we have, obviously we can help you to do that project, and we have all the guys that can assist you with that. We have accountants, we have debt counselors.
Okay.
So those who are in debt review, you want to get out, we have a debt counselor that can assist you with that. So we're pretty much a one-stop shop. Yeah. Then we can then advise you in terms of what to do. Like we hold your hand, basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right through.
Yeah.
Mr. Gav, thank you so much for coming to the pod.
Thank you for
and
having me.
sharing everything that you've shared with us.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Right.
Mr. Nigel?
I'm good, man.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Gav.
Wonderful.
Sure.